What's happening around the world?
And what's happening here at home? Good evening and welcome to Prime Time News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Nithmini De Silva.
And I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
President calls on all parties to join hands in rebuilding the nation, akin to nurturing these blossoming flowers. SJB declines support for national government under current presidency. Election Commission warns against violating guidelines, says local government election law still in effect. No debt write-off for middle-income countries, says President in debt restructuring speech to Parliament.
කිසිම රටක් අපිට ණය දෙන්නේ නැත්නම් අපි කොහොමද ණය ගන්නේ? මම ඉංගලන්තේ මහ බැංකුව කඩන්නද? ඒක මම දන්නේ දැන් මේ පුද්ගලයා මට වඩා පළපුරුද්දක් තියෙනවා බැංකුව කඩන එක.
Opposition leader warns President against politicizing debt restructuring. Dayasiri retains SLPP General Secretary position. LP gas prices reduced again.
First up in sports, Sri Lanka's Tharushi Karunaratne and Dilhani Lekamge have qualified to compete in the 2024 Paris Olympics following the latest update in the rankings. Tharushi Karunaratne has secured the 45th position in the rankings, while Dilhani Lekamge secured the 26th position in the latest update. In 800 meters women's sprint, 48 athletes are to be qualified, and as per the latest ranking, Tharushi Karunaratne is at 45th position. In addition, 32 athletes will compete in the women's javelin throw, and Nadisha Dilhani Lekamge has made it through after ranking 26th.
Speculation abounds regarding the potential formation of a national government by the President, prompting discussions within the political sphere. The discourse gained traction following the President's remarks in Parliament, the Cabinet spokesman's briefing to the media, and the decision by the SJB parliamentary group to withhold support for a national government, all serving as key triggers for this ongoing discussion.
In Parliament, the President delivered a special statement regarding the agreement reached on restructuring bilateral foreign debt. The President also asked upon all parties to participate in the demanding task of rebuilding the country.
In this Parliament, there is a group attentively and vigilantly observing these developments. Hailing from various political parties, they maintain independent and impartial oversight. They are patiently assessing whether their allegiance lies with a party or an individual, or if it truly stands with the country's interests. In the Caucasian chalk circle, Grusha faces a critical decision: to carry the child and journey over the Wine Bridge, her only viable option at the time. Despite nearby skepticism and fearful inquiries about her fate, like, are you going to die? Do you see the precipice, like the underworld? However, Grusha makes a daring decision. She bravely chooses to undertake this risky path. Many anticipate her failure as she crosses the precarious Wine Bridge. However, against all odds, Grusha successfully reaches safety with the child. An onlooker, reflecting on their initial doubt, exclaims in frustration, even though such pessimism persists in our society, I urge those with such despairing thoughts to change their mindset for the betterment and future of our nation. I urge all esteemed members of this assembly, whether they support, oppose, respect or admire me, to prioritize the welfare of our nation. Let us all remember one thing: my decisions are not driven by political power or popularity. They are made solely for the country's benefit. Over the past 2 years, my actions have been devoid of political maneuvering. I call upon each of them to join hands in the arduous task of rebuilding our nation, akin to nurturing these blossoming flowers. Together, let us unite and lift up our motherland once more.
Did the cabinet discuss any proposal on forming a national government?
The cabinet did not engage in discussions surrounding this matter. Today, His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe delivered a compelling address to the legislature, extending a gracious invitation to all political leaders and parliamentarians who share a deep love for the nation to collaborate towards fostering national unity. The pressing issue at hand revolves around the challenging task of servicing the foreign debt, emphasizing the critical importance of safeguarding the country's interests, securing a prosperous future for generations to come, especially our children. He urged unity and cooperation on the execution of those agreements. His intentions were to urge everyone who loves the country to work together. The cabinet did not discuss the matter of a national government.
The Samagi Jana Balawegaya parliamentary group has decided that the SJB will not extend its party support to form a national government under the current presidency. A proposal moved by SJB MP Buddhika Pathiran on Tuesday was unanimously approved by the SJB parliamentary group.
2 years ago, a similar invitation to form a national government was extended. The SJB decided against forming a national government with those who face corruption allegations. The decision taken back then was further certified today, and it was approved by the opposition group.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, leader of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, returned to the country following his visit to China. Addressing reporters at the airport, Rajapaksa revealed that a nominee capable of collaborating with the party will be announced for the upcoming presidential election.
We will name a candidate, but be patient. The party has not reached a decision, and we are a democratic party. The matter will be discussed. There is no reason for an issue. We maintain two separate political views. We are not here to take away his assets. Yes, someone who can work with us. We will support that person. Not yet, but it will be decided in the future. Leaders emerge from the people.
Here's the position of SLPP MP Samanpriya Hera.
I want to make it clear that our party leader is Mahinda Rajapaksa. He has always been and will continue to be the guiding figure of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. We have a leader and we have a robust organizational structure. We are committed to operating democratically at all times. Various statements can be made, but as a party we ultimately come to a unified decision. There is no need to worry about that. The meeting in question was a public one, not an official party meeting. However, when we hold official party meetings, we communicate the party stance. Whatever the party leader declares becomes our collective decision. We attended that meeting with the party's knowledge. It was a public meeting, not an official party meeting.
A group of opposition parties, spearheaded by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, filed a formal complaint with the Election Commission today. Their grievance centers around the alleged exploitation of local government candidates for political purposes by governors at a time that the local government vote has not been cancelled.
The General Secretary of Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Ranjit Madhaba Bandara, along with representatives from various opposition parties, made a visit to the Election Commission. Their purpose was to implore the Commission to take action and ensure that the upcoming election is conducted in a manner that is independent, democratic and fair.
After the local government election has been announced and nominations have been submitted, the nominees are appointed. However, it appears that the government has already allocated funds amounting to 8,750 million rupees for these activities. In Monaragala, reports have emerged that individuals have been incentivized to attend meetings with the promise of receiving 2 packets of maize seeds and a bag of fertilizer and 21,000 rupees. Additionally, attendees have been given a bag of goods from Matra Satosa. These actions represent a clear violation of election laws and regulations. The governor serves as the representative of the president. However, when the presidential election was just 90 days away, there is a widespread call for the Election Commission to take action in response to the corrupt practices being implemented by the president's representatives in various provinces. There was an attempt to avoid holding the presidential election due to partisan bias. However, due to mounting pressure and public outcry, the government has been forced to conduct the election despite their reluctance to do so. They are trying to hold an unjust election and we are against it.
The National People's Power filed a complaint with the National Election Commission.
Southern Province Governor Lakshman Yapabewardena has issued backdated letters appointing certain local government candidates as his representatives. These appointments are not for any legitimate purpose but to distribute provincial council and local government funds for election campaigning and promotion. This is a clear violation of election laws.
The Election Commission emphasised that despite the postponement of the local government election, the local government election law remains in effect. It added that during this period, it is crucial to refrain from promoting any political party, candidate or group. The Election Commission noted that Circular Number 2, issued on the 5th of January 2023, addresses the improper use of state property and regulations related to the recruitment, promotion and transfer of officials. It added that violating these guidelines by engaging in actions that favour or prejudice political parties and candidates is considered a punishable offence. Furthermore, the Commission underscored that utilising nominated candidates for such purposes violates constitutional provisions, election laws and circulars.
The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 15 days.
The Supreme Court held that the clauses 32.3 and 32.4 of the Public Financial Management Bill are unconstitutional and shall only be passed with a special majority of Parliament and be approved by the people at a referendum.
Transparency International Sri Lanka challenged the bill in the Supreme Court on the basis that Clause 32 seriously weakens the controls on public procurement, thereby enhancing the corruption risk and weakening the level playing field. The court held that Clause 32.3, which allowed the Minister of Finance to exempt state audit prices from compliance with the procurement guidelines, and Clause 32.4, which allowed provincial councils to adopt their own guidelines, are violative of Articles 3 and 12(1) of the Constitution. Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapabewardena informed the House the determination of the Supreme Court concerning the bill titled quote-unquote economic transformation. The Supreme Court's determination highlighted several key areas in the bill that require revision to safeguard constitutional integrity. Key recommendations include the deletion of certain clauses, amendments to empower the Economic Commission, clarification on qualifications and procedures, and removal of inconsistencies with the Constitution.
The power of the people.
Every child deserves a healthy foundation. Behedayaya Junior College received a new water purification system guaranteeing clean drinking water for its students, the future leaders of tomorrow, with healthy minds and bodies ready to learn.
Sri Lanka's Got Talent Season 2 starting 6 July 8:30 p.m. only on Sirasa TV. Don't miss it.
Now, Sri Lanka's Election Commission has precisely 15 days to acquire the authority to announce the specific dates for the presidential election. Now, at the same time, there is discussion going around about the formation of a new national government. Now, all these developments are coming in following the President's special statement to the Parliament today, where his main objective was to give information to the House on the debt restructuring agreements that were reached last week. First, let's have a look at what the President informed Parliament about.
I
would like to update this House on the agreements reached with the Official Creditor Committee co-chaired by India, Japan and France, as well as the Exim Bank of China regarding debt restructuring. We have secured a grace period until 2028 for repaying the principal loan. Significant reductions have been made to the interest rates, with the new rate set at 2.1% or lower. The repayment period for clearing the entire loan has been extended by 8 years, meaning our debt should now be fully settled by 2043. There is flexibility to gradually increase principal loan repayments, allowing us to defer loan servicing costs. This has resulted in Sri Lanka retaining a debt service of $5 billion. Through economic restructuring, rebuilding reserves, creating fiscal buffers, and enhancing debt repayment capacity, we aim to position the economy strongly for future debt repayments. This approach is creating considerable financial flexibility. Next, we are in the process of finalizing the restructuring plan for commercial debt totaling $14.7 billion. Discussions on this matter are currently progressing successfully. We anticipate completing all these tasks within a short time frame. Following this, I will submit all agreements and documents related to debt restructuring to the Committee on Public Finance of Parliament. I urge the Public Finance Committee to give careful and thorough consideration to these matters. I request the Chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, Dr. Harish Silva, to study this in depth and make a presentation.
මේ ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරලා මේ කරුණු ඔක්කොම ලබලා දීලා කරුණා කළා මේ ගැන සම්පූර්ණ ගැඹුරු විග්‍රහයක් කරන්න. මේක අපේ අනාගත. හැම එක්කෙනා මේ ගැන විග්‍රහයක් කළ යුතුයි.
Bilateral debt restructuring agreements. Although the preliminary agreements have been established, the provisions within these agreements have not yet been disclosed. Originally, Parliament was set to debate the agreements that were reached with the bilateral creditors and the Exim Bank of China today and tomorrow. However, a party leaders meeting later decided that these agreements will not be debated on these 2 days. However, the President's special statement on those particular debt agreements will be delivered to Parliament today, and thus the President delivered his statement. However, earlier, Dr. Harish Silva, the Chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, stressed that Parliament cannot debate these agreements in the absence of the documentation or the information that is contained in these agreements. Several other parties also expressed similar concerns. At the same time, there is also concerns being raised with regard to commercial creditors' debt, or the ISBs in particular. Now, the information regarding these discussions are not coming to light because those discussions are taking place within a non-disclosure framework, which means what is discussed cannot be released immediately. Now, simultaneously, there's also an argument going around about the bilateral agreements, whether they would favor one faction and be unfair for another faction. Now, despite all these complexities going on, a debate did not take place in Parliament regarding these agreements. Now, additionally, the President's statement, in addition to what he mentioned about these agreements, the statement also contained certain political elements as well. Let's have a look. Official bilateral creditors never reduce the principal amount of a loan. What we can obtain are concessions such as extended loan repayment periods, grace periods and reduced interest rates. However, not understanding this reality, some blame the Sri Lankan government for not requesting a basic debt write-off. Others claim that if they come to power, they will negotiate with creditor countries to cut 50% of the initial loan amount. We must recognize that such actions require mutual agreement. These statements reveal a lack of understanding of international economic systems. Neither the creditor nor the borrower has the authority to make the final decision on the extent of debt restructuring. The International Monetary Fund makes that decision. They determine what kind of restructuring plan is necessary to make a country's debt sustainable. Sri Lanka, being a middle-income country, was among the first to implement debt restructuring using the new debt sustainability analysis framework tailored for middle-income countries. According to the plan set for Sri Lanka, public debt must be reduced to below 95% of GDP by 2032. In contrast, the plan presented for Ghana, a low-income country, required them to reduce the present value of their public debt to below 55% of GDP by 2028. Only Sri Lanka and Ghana are taking forward a successful IMF program. Certain political groups have been spreading misinformation about our foreign debt on social media. A post shared by a supporter of our MP Anurukumar Dissanayake claimed the following: "Good news, when Pina took the country, the total foreign debt was $71 billion. Now it is $100 billion. We have debated with MP Anurukumar Dissanayake and there have been disagreements, but he has not insulted me directly in such a manner. However, some of your supporters are actively working against you. The total foreign debt of our country is $37 billion, not $71 billion as claimed by this individual, which is a false statement. Moreover, they suggest that we have borrowed up to $100 billion in the last 2 years, but it's widely known that no country has provided us with loans since we declared default. Legally, no country has the authority to lend to us under these circumstances. What is the purpose of spreading such misinformation? If no country is giving us funds, am I to loot the Bank of England? The person who posted that may have better experience in looting banks."
මට වඩා පළපුරුද්දක් තියෙනවා බැංකු කඩන එක.
Following this MOU, the possibility of bilateral foreign loans has reopened for us. Additionally, several projects that were initiated with foreign loan assistance and halted projects can now be resumed. Some responded unfavorably to the positive news of debt restructuring, exhibiting unwarranted hostility, akin to a serpent doused with kerosene. In the context of social media, it resembled porcupines bristling with defensive reactions. Why is this so? Is the success of the IMF program seen as good or bad news? Is it good or bad news that queues for fuel, gas and kerosene have vanished? Is the reduction of bank interest rates from 30% to 9% considered a good news or bad news? Is the significant drop in inflation from 70% to 1.7% by last month seen as a good news or bad news? Is the reversal from 6 consecutive quarters of economic contraction to growth considered a good news or bad news? Is the increase in foreign reserves from a low point in May 2022 to $5,410 million good news or bad news? Is the strengthening of the rupee seen as good news or bad news? Is the shift from a primary account deficit to a surplus considered a good news or bad news? Covering the budget deficit without resorting to printing money is it good news or bad news? Is a current account surplus in our balance of payments considered a good news or bad news? The party leaders who previously faced a risk of violence just for visiting Galface can now travel safely from the southern to the northern tip of the country. Is it good news or bad news?
සුභාරංචියක්ද අසුභාරංචියක්ද සල්ලි අතු ගහන්න නැතුව අයවැය හිඟ පියවා ගැනීම සුභාරංචියක්ද අසුභාරංචියක්ද විදේශ ගෙවුම් ශේෂයේ ජංගම ගිණුමේ අතිරික්තයක් ඇති කර ගැනීම සුභාරංචියක්ද අසුභාරංචියක්ද ගාලු මුවදොර පිට්ටනියටවත් ගුටි නොකා යන්න නිදහසක් නොතිබුණු පක්ෂ නායකයන්ට රටේ දකුණු කෙළවරේ සිට උතුරු කෙළවරට යන්න පුළුවන් වීම සුභාරංචියක්ද අසුභාරංචියක්ද?
Ghana managed to reduce its total debt, including interest, by 37%. Argentina secured a 36% reduction in net present value through debt restructuring, and Ecuador achieved a 42.2% reduction in net present value. We hoped that when the President addressed the nation and Parliament today, he would present similar figures. However, the sudden cancellation of today's parliamentary debate and the planned meetings of the party leaders indicate that no comprehensive agreement has been reached yet. We are still waiting to see if the current Sri Lankan government can secure debt reductions comparable to those achieved by Argentina, Ecuador and Ghana. During the domestic debt restructuring, we saw a tendency to prioritize the interests of international bondholders. Dr. Harish Silva informed me that on the previous previous Friday, he had suggested to you over the phone to convene the Finance Committee on Monday to discuss and approve the proposal, making it possible to debate and pass it by Tuesday or Wednesday. However, you mentioned that discussions were ongoing with international sovereign bond holders and you could not only provide the agreement reached with bilateral creditors at this time. I must ask the Leader of the House why there was a sudden meeting of party leaders and the cancellation of the parliamentary debate. Were you, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet unaware that these agreements were incomplete? You spoke about good news and bad news. Is the increase in nutrition beneficial or detrimental? How about job loss? Does it have positive or negative implications? When our country's intellectuals choose to leave, is that a good or bad sign? And what about the rise in poverty? Is good news or bad news? The closure of countless small and medium-scale industries and the exit of enterprises from business, good news or bad news? When our education system leaves children in the dark, is that a positive outcome? The construction industries collapse. Is it good news or bad news? Is it good news or bad news when people have started to skip meals? Kindly refrain from politicizing the debt settlement process. We must not jeopardize the well-being of 2.2 million citizens due to political motives. I propose to the President to not reach a bad deal based on the political calendar.
සටහන අනුව කටයුතු කරන්නට ගිහිල්ලා රටට බෑඩ් ඩීල් එකක් රෝ ඩීල් එකක් නරක කිවිසුමකට ප්‍රවේශ වෙන්න එපයි කියන එකයි මම ජනාධිපතිතුමාට කියනවා.
අපෙන් ඇහුවා ප්‍රශ්නයක් මන්ද පෝෂණය.
A question was posed regarding the malnutrition affecting children in classrooms. It is indeed a serious issue. That is why we introduced Aswasma. This is why we initiated measures such as distributing 10 kilograms of rice per month for 2 months and providing food supplies. Addressing poverty is another priority. We are granting ownership rights to 200,000 families and providing housing for 250,000. Our efforts to reduce poverty and unemployment include restarting factories and attracting investments. I also question whether fleeing from the responsibility of running the country amidst an economic crisis is good or bad. As for the agreements, I informed Harish Silva that we could present the agreements with international sovereign bond holders once negotiations are complete. Clifford Chance, our legal advisors, cautioned against revealing the details prematurely, as it could affect ongoing negotiations. I assure you that all relevant information will be presented to Harish Silva's committee for thorough discussion. Are you envious of Dr. Harish Silva's role? Is that why you're raising these concerns now? Nalaka Goduhewa could be considered for an advisory role if you prefer to fall back into trouble. Ghana was not handled by the finance minister. Our state minister performed. Why do we need more?
ගාන එක ගැන මේ මුදල් ඇමති නෙමෙයි ඔක කරේ. මුදල් ඇමතිවරේ නෙමෙයි ඒක අපේ රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරයා කරා. ඉතින් තව මොනවටද මම වෙන ඒවා. ඉතින් ඕන්න යන්න කැමති නම් මම ටිකට් එකක් දෙන්න යන්න. ජනාධිපතිවරයා.
It was the president who did not allow Harish Silva to chair the finance committee for several years.
A press conference was called by Dr. Harish Silva today.
I am like the child in the Caucasian chalk circle. I am being pulled from all sides. But the truth is that I am on the side of the people. I have a responsibility to make a decision on the best restructuring deal for the country and our people. I am not ready to put the light up and down like a lamp post. Parliament wants to remove me now that there is a debate. No problem, because you can't get this done by intimidating me. Now, if those in the government say to download the documents and discuss it, the level of the understanding on studying this in depth is evident. It is the opinion of many that the president was trying to take a political advantage by emphasizing on my name. Is Sajid jealous of me? Okay, can't we come to an agreement? The president is the leader of the country. He does not need to go down to that level. Sajid, me, Iran and Kabir are all in one opinion. I am happy that there is a demand for me as a politician.
A US Treasury official met with the Sri Lankan President to discuss the country's economic recovery.
Deputy Assistant Secretary of the US Treasury, Robert Kaproth, called on Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe on Monday. He was accompanied by the US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung. The US Ambassador said that they commended Sri Lanka's progress towards economic recovery. She added that the US acknowledged the ongoing challenges many Sri Lankans face, and encouraged the government to deepen reforms that foster growth and improve transparency and accountability, paving the way for economically resilient Sri Lanka. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of the US Treasury and US Ambassador Julie Chung also met with State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe. The State Minister had extended sincere gratitude and appreciation to the government and people of the USA for their support and cooperation in helping Sri Lanka recover economically and conclude bilateral debt restructuring, help find a resolution to Sri Lanka's debt crisis. He said that it was great to note the USA's continued support to Sri Lanka, which is significant, reflecting the strong bilateral relationship between the two countries. He added that the support on multiple sectors and the partnership aims to foster stability and mutual understanding benefiting both nations. He said, quote, "During the discussion, reaffirmed our commitment to keeping economic and other reforms on track," unquote.
Sri Lanka's Foreign Affairs Minister is on an official visit to Japan.
Sri Lanka's Foreign Affairs Minister Sri Lanka's Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri called on former Foreign Minister and current Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japan, Hayashi Yoshimasa, this morning in Tokyo. Ali Sabri said they held discussions on the vibrant Japan-Sri Lanka partnership and shared views on the way to further bolster the engagement. The Sri Lankan Foreign Affairs Minister had given an update of the latest economic situation and the progress of the debt restructuring process. Japan's former Foreign Minister expressed his confidence that Sri Lanka's economy will continue to improve. Ali Sabri also met with the Justice Minister of Japan, Ryuji Koizumi. He said they discussed enhancing bilateral relations and creating more opportunities for Sri Lankans to contribute to Japan's diverse economic sectors. The Foreign Affairs Minister also sought Japan's support in digitalizing and upgrading our judicial administration to address law delays.
The Colombo District Court issued an interim order preventing the removal of Dayasiri Jayasekara from his position as General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and his expulsion from party membership. This decision comes in response to a petition filed by Jayasekara.
In light of the ongoing legal proceedings, the interim order will remain in force until the relevant petitions are heard, allowing Dayasiri Jayasekara to officially assume the position of General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, effective immediately.
I
worked without taking any side. I did not align myself with Nimal Siripala's faction or Maithripala Sirisena's faction. I wanted to bring both sides together. As the party's legal secretary, I am resolute in my efforts to facilitate this process, believing in the significance of unity over personal agendas. My commitment lies in fostering collaboration and cohesion within the party, steering away from divisive tendencies.
While
we are anticipating a presidential election, however, the president can also dissolve the parliament and call for an election.
Representatives from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party visited the Election Commission.
The Executive Committee appointed a chairman and general secretary. We will continue with that. I am not sure about that. As the party constitution, the Executive Committee was summoned and a new chairman and general secretary were appointed. We were not summoned by the court.
National People's Power Surya Veva Farmers Conference was held this afternoon.
The Farmers' Conference was held under the theme Rata Hadana Visudumata Govi Balaya Ekapelata, loosely translated to Farmers' Power for the Solution of the Country.
Would you have ever imagined that Mahinda Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe would sit together in the same government? Unlikely, right? In a recent meeting, Ranil Wickremesinghe was seen waving on one side, while Kanchana Wijesekara was on the other side with Prasanna Ranawira and Mahinda Ananda Alutkamage, who once called for Ranil's imprisonment, joined by Lakshman Yapabe Wardana. In another recent meeting held in Ambalangoda, many parliamentarians from the SLPP were present on stage, including Mahinda Amaraveera, Susil Premajayanta and Nimal Lansa. Previous Previously, many criticized Ranil Wickremesinghe, accusing him of destroying the country. Now the same voices are proclaiming that he is the right man to rebuild it. This sudden change begs the question, why are these political figures joining forces now? It appears that Ranil Wickremesinghe, along with others, are attempting to consolidate power in response to unprecedented situation. For the first time in 76 years, a political party representing the general public is on the brink of achieving victory and leadership in the country.
Despite their differing political ideologies, ministers from both the ruling party and the opposition joined together today to pay their final respects to the late R. Sampanthan.
A prominent Sri Lankan politician and former opposition leader R. Sampanthan's body was interred at a private funeral parlour in Colombo this morning, allowing the public to pay their respects. R. Sampanthan, who had been ailing for some time, passed away at a private hospital in Colombo. He was 91 years old. Numerous individuals, including fellow politicians, arrived this morning to honour R. Sampanthan's memory. The remains are scheduled to be placed at the Parliament complex tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. Following the parliamentary tribute, the body will be transported to Trincomalee, where the final rites are planned for next Sunday.
Got Talent Season 2 starting 6 July 8:30 p.m. only on Sirasa TV. Don't miss it.
A special service to mark 100 years since the enshrinement of the revered statue of Our Lady of Madhu took place today.
A special service to mark 100 years since the enshrinement of the revered statue of Our Lady of Madhu took place this morning. The Holy Mass was graced by His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit. Upon the invitation extended by Bishop Emmanuel Fernando of the Diocese of Mannar, many bishops were present for the service. Following the Mass, the revered statue of Our Lady of Madhu was taken across the church premises.
The United States Supreme Court has for the first time recognized that former presidents have immunity from prosecution for certain actions taken in office.
The United States Supreme Court has for the first time recognized that former presidents have immunity from prosecution for certain actions taken in office, as it threw out a judicial decision rejecting Donald Trump's bid to shield himself from criminal charges involving his efforts to undo his 2020 election loss. The court on Monday ruled 6-3 that while former presidents enjoy immunity for actions they take within their constitutional authority, they do not for actions taken in a private capacity. The ruling marked the first time since the nation's 18th century founding that the Supreme Court has declared that former presidents may be shielded from criminal charges in any instance. The decision will boost Trump's defense against federal charges over his efforts to overturn the 2020 vote, which he lost to President Joe Biden. It would also affect similar state-level election interference charges in Georgia. Joe Biden has described as a dangerous precedent a Supreme Court ruling giving former President Donald Trump partial immunity from criminal prosecution. The current US president said the judgment undermined the rule of law and was a terrible disservice to Americans.
This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election.
Following the Supreme Court's decision, the trial judge must now determine which actions were carried out in Trump's capacity as president, which could take months. Any trial is unlikely to start before the November 5th election. At the same time, former First Lady Michelle Obama will replace President Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz has predicted. Cruz claims Biden will be replaced at the Democratic National Convention in August, just 3 months before the election. The prediction comes after the first presidential debate, where Biden's performance was widely criticized by political analysts and news organizations. Some strategists are reportedly discussing ways to replace Biden on the ballot.
Opponents of France's far right sought to build a united front to block the path to government of Marine Le Pen's national rally after the party made historic gains to win the first round of a parliamentary election. After a lightning campaign marred by a rise in hate speech, French voters put the national rally in a commanding position in the first round of snap elections, placing the party founded by supporters of Nazi-allied Vichy France at the gates of power. Le Pen's party and its partners on the right took a third of the first round vote, 5 points clear of a fledgling coalition of the left known as the New Popular Front, and a staggering 12 points ahead of President Emmanuel Macron's ruling alliance. The nationalist anti-immigrant party topped the race in 296 out of France's 577 constituencies, winning 39 of them outright with over 50% of the vote. Whether it can clear the last hurdle in a second round next Sunday will hinge on a record number of three-way races, pitting in most cases RN candidates against rivals from the left and Macron's centre-right camp. Le Pen has urged voters to push her party over the line and hand it an absolute majority of seats in the National Assembly. In such scenario, Macron would be expected to name the party's 28-year-old poster boy Jordan Bardella as Prime Minister in an awkward power-sharing system known as cohabitation that would weaken him both at home and on the world stage. That prospect has triggered frantic horse trading as parties work to make alliances in some constituencies or pull out of others, hoping to stop the Le Pen juggernaut in its tracks. In recent times, governments across the world have been rejected, paving the way for new emerging forces. After France's far-right national rally surged into the lead in the first round of legislative elections, some European neighbours cast a wary eye on the latest country to veer to the right on the continent. The French result comes after the European Parliament elections last month strengthened hard-right parties overall, though their performance varied from country to country. It also comes as Hungary, led by Prime Minister Viktor Orban, long known as Eurosceptic, took over the European Union's presidency for the coming 6 months. Pro-European politicians fear a further weakening of unity in the 27-nation bloc, which is already experiencing anti-European sentiment in many regions, triggered by issues such as inflation, migration, and Russia's brutal war on Ukraine that has brought in millions of refugees looking for shelter.
A felicitation ceremony was held at Ibangamoor Central College to honour Chamar Attu, the captain of Sri Lanka's women's cricket team.
Badalatu Ahisara Pranama was the theme for the felicitation ceremony to honour Chamar Attu. The event was graced by Principal Niranjala Kolambage, SLC Chairman Harish Silva, President's Private Secretary Sudat Chandrasekhara, among others.
Chamar Attu ළඟදී ඇවිල්ලා මට කියනවා සර් මට ක්‍රිකට් ගැහුවා ඇති දැන් නතර වෙන්න ඕන කියලා. මං කිව්වා තව අවුරුදු 4-5ක්.
Recently, Chamari came up to me and said she wanted to stop playing cricket. I said she can play for a few more years and asked her not to stop. Chamar Attu accepted it We have many championships in the future and we have some good players. We had Susantika Jayasinghe and Sriyani Kulabansa. Now we have Chamari, the best in the world. In the future, Chamari might be the first Sri Lankan woman to chair SLC. I request you rename this ground the Chamari Atapattu ground.
Chamari Atapattu ක්‍රීඩාංගණය නමින් නම් කරන්න කියලා ඔබතුමාලගෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
අද මේ උත්සවය සංවිධානය කරපු සංඝායක මණ්ඩලයට මම දෙවියන් ස්තුතිවන්ත.
Everyone wants to be a champion. You cannot always be a champion. Sometimes you fall. That happens to all of us. If someone tell you that you cannot do something, start training for that. Do the correct things. All decisions must be correct decisions.
ඒ නිසා හැම වෙලාවෙම තීරණ ගatti ජීවිතේ නිවැරදි තීරණ ගන්න.
Chamar Attu also made a donation of 1 million rupees to the school. The girls' cricket team at the school was officially launched today as well.
And with that, we wrap up Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.